Hey everybody, it's Booray and today we are going to talk about my button settings on my Fuji X100V. Now I'm not going to go into detail about how to change the button settings. That's going to be another video. I just wanted to do a quick video where I show you what all my button settings are set to, and then you can figure out how to do it, or we'll make another video later and show you how to set and change every single button. Before we get started, don't forget I have a fantastic podcast. It's called Photobomb with Booray and Gary, two professional photographers talking about photography and changes in the industry and generally having a goofy time. I would love for you to check it out. It's available anywhere that podcasts are found. And I also have a group on Facebook, so please join it. We talk about photography there. It's called Pro Photo Talk with Booray Perry. There are links in the description to everything you could possibly want having to do with me. So let's get started. Let's start with the front of the camera and the settings that I have on the front of the camera. And by the way, let me just say real quick that all the accessories that you see on my camera, my lens hood, my strap, my thumb grip, all of these are available in the description. I have a page set up where I have a link to everything that I use, and so if you like any of this stuff and you're interested in it, please use the link and then buy it from Amazon, and I get a little bit of a kickback from that. I get a couple of dollars, and it helps me to keep this channel going. All right, so the front of the camera, the settings that I have for the front of the camera pretty much are set to default. I really don't mess with the settings on the front of the camera because they come from the factory pretty good. So my front ring here, my focus ring, is set so that when you turn it, it zooms in, right? It gives you your digital zooms, and then if you press the button down to focus the camera, and then you turn it while pressing the button down, it brings up manual focus. And I find this to be very handy if you're working on the street or something like that, and you don't actually have a person to focus on, but you want to focus on an area. You want to zone focus for when someone walks into the area. So then I'll just do this right here and focus this way. So that's where I've got the focus ring set. Now, the front dial and the back dial, there's two ways kind of that I use this camera. One is going to be full manual, and the other is going to be almost full automatic. And so I keep my dials and buttons set up that way. So if you are in full manual mode and you're setting your shutter speed manually, and you're setting your ISO manually, get down there, and you're setting your exposure compensation manually, well then all of this is pretty much self-explanatory. And if you're using full manual mode, then this button and this button really don't do anything for you, and you don't really need them to do anything for you. You have to be careful that you don't assign too much stuff to certain buttons, because then it becomes overwhelming, or at least it does for me. If a button does 4 different things, then I can't remember what those 4 different things are, so I like buttons to just do 1 or 2 things. But I tend to shoot in auto mode most of the time. So I'm going to have my shutter speed in auto, I'm going to have my ISO in auto, and I'm going to have my exposure compensation set to C, right? And what that does is I then have this front wheel set so that it is my exposure compensation. So if I'm framing up a picture, there you go. And if I just turn this wheel here, you can see that's my exposure compensation. So I set my aperture with my aperture dial on the front of the camera, and then I let the auto ISO and auto shutter speed set my other settings based on where I turn the aperture. Where I turn this wheel right here. I don't think this wheel has a name. But this becomes my exposure compensation wheel right here. And that's how I shoot probably 99% of the time, because it makes it very simple. But only if you have already set up your auto ISO so that it is set to parameters that you want it to be set to. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. So let's go to the back of the camera. These buttons stay pretty much the same. The drive button is still the drive button. This button right here is your performance boost mode button. So you can turn boost mode on and off. I like to keep boost mode on, most of the time, but it does drain your battery faster. So if you're going to be out for a while and you're worried about that, you can just kick it off real quick right there. So we used to have a big wheel right here, 4 buttons to program, and now we don't have that anymore. And what we have instead is the screen. And what I did was, there's a reason that I've been late in making this video with my button settings, and it's because my button settings are basically the same on the V as they were on the F. It's just on the F it was a 4-way button here, whereas now it's a 4-way swipe. But I have it set to the same settings, and I'll put a link on the video right above right now if you have an F100F and you want to see how I set those buttons up. So the way I set these buttons up, very, very simple. Swiping up is my flash settings. Why? Because the flash sits on top of the camera. So if I swipe towards the flash, then I get my flash settings. I try to come up with clever ways for me to remember, you know, what does what. If I swipe to the right, I get my auto ISO settings. And you can see I have my auto ISO settings set up basically just by shutter speed. I've already told that I want my auto ISO to cap out at 12,800, but basically the only difference in my settings is that this is 1/60th of a second, this is 125, and this is 500. So all I have to do is quickly, when I'm shooting, swipe over here and then say, am I shooting motion? Go there. Am I shooting maybe possibly some motion? Go there. Am I shooting in low light and people are standing still? Go there. That's all I need to know. And once I've set one of those settings, I'm good to go. I know that my shutter speed will never drop below a certain point. My ISO will go and compensate and do whatever it has to do for me automatically, and I can set my aperture myself on the front of the camera. And this is how I shoot most all of the time. If you swipe to the left, there's the film settings. Love the film settings. And here's the thing. The reason I put them here, again, memory, right? If you swipe to the right, you notice how most of the writing is on the right-hand side of the bar, of the vertical bar? And if you swipe to the left, you notice how the writing is on the left-hand side of the vertical bar? I have one of those memories that really works off visual things. And so I visually, without thinking about it, will swipe left because that's where the words are. And here I'll swipe right because that's where the words are. Right? And then my final setting, if you swipe down, is my face detection settings. So I can quickly switch, turn it off or turn it on, one eye auto, like that. And that's about it. I mean, you can push this button in and get it to do something else. You can push this button in and get it to do something else. I haven't really set those buttons up to do that yet because I find that I really don't use them very often. On my old camera, I had it set up so that if you push this button in, you could then change your ISO manually. But I didn't really use it that much. And so, and also sometimes I would push it in by mistake and then I would be in that setting and not know it. So Fuji has done a good job of giving us so many options that we can actually ignore some of them. And I really have started to get as simple as possible in my shooting because I want this camera to be pick up and go. I don't want to have to think too much about it. I want to be able to be in the moment. And so I try to just use as few buttons and settings as possible. And that's really all I have set up on this camera. And it's really all I need, right? As long as I've got everything in an auto mode, I can just go like that. If I need to change my exposure, I just roll this up and down here. If I need to zoom in, I can zoom in. If I need to manually focus, I touch the button, manually focus. And that's really all I need, right? And if I need to make a change to the ISO settings, I go there. And if I need to make a change to the film settings, I go there. And that's it most of the time. If you're in an eye focus mode, right? So you're eye focusing and it's not focusing where you want it to, you can just hit this right here and manually take control. So you don't even have to change your eye focus mode most of the time. I just keep it on most of the time and then manually take control if it's not doing what I want it to do. So that's it. Those are my button settings. Be sure and tell me where I screwed up. I love input. So tell me how you set up your button settings. If you've got a better plan or a better idea, I would love to know about it. So absolutely put it in the comments and let's get the conversation started. Thanks for watching.